we're going to talk about Star Wars: The Acolyte, and we're going to start with some spoiler-free thoughts, and then go into spoilers, and then at the end of it, I'm going to pull up some comments that you guys made on Facebook earlier today that I asked for about your thoughts about the, how everything is going and or went, I guess, because it's kind of over now. So there's still a little bit of time to throw that in, those comments in.
So to start spoiler free,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I fully appreciated the cinematography in this show until this episode.
You know why I didn't appreciate it?
Why is that?
Because the episodes were too short. I know it's a
You say this about everything every single week.
I understand. Well, not House of the Dragon. They do episode lengths fucking great. And give them credit. Yeah. This was a longer episode.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why you appreciate the cinematography more.
But they do a whole bunch of like wide shots of like
alien vistas
and just landscapes in general. And it's
a planetary ring.
It looks good.
It was kick-ass. That whole sequence was fucking kick-ass. Two big cameos, and I can say what they are. One of them was not a huge shock. The other one was a huge shock, but it probably shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
Both of them, I think, had people like, yeah. And one of them was like, oh, God, what the fuck was that all about? They had a really good introduction for a character we all wanted to see in the show. And by the way, this is one of those things where like Star Wars series, like, oh, fucking blah 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 better be in this show or I'm gonna fucking riot or whatever, and like it happened. I think he's still bitching about it because that's how he makes money,
because he's never happy. The fight scenes,
good scenes? In this one,
pretty fucking good.
Both the lightsaber combat and the force combat, and
there's a little hand-to-hand combat. That's pretty good.
Saul has a really neat like it kind of answers the question of if you just have Saul and Kamir in a room fighting, which one of them wins? Mm-hmm. It's not Kamir.
No.
And I think he was caught off guard in episode 5. But you should not underestimate.
Yeah. He just watched all his friends die.
Poor fucking Jackie.
Yeah.
Yord.
Fucking Yord. I forgot Yord was in this show.
That's the most Yord thing to have happen to you, is to just have everyone forget you were there. You know that was a wig he wore? His like,
really?
Yeah, that's a wig. Yeah. There's a picture of one of the
actor who plays Yord, or
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because I think there's a picture of like Jackie, or the actor that plays Jackie,
Daphne Keane,
was like wearing it. It was like really goofy looking. Lee Jung-jae gives an acting performance that we don't often see in Star Wars, and I was like, damn, dude. Like, they're doing a second season of Squid Game, and I think he was already going to be a part of it.
No.
You're going to see Lee Jung-jae in more stuff in general, I think.
So, especially now that he knows English.
Yeah. So we also, like, I appreciate that this show gave us a side of the Jedi that isn't explored in Star Wars too often.
Yes, the writing, not necessarily the dialogue, although the dialogue is pretty good, but just
I think it's basic. It's serviceable.
It's fine.
It's not Andor.
But the ideas and the plot points that they explored were very interesting to me.
I think it creates an interesting POV thing, because I think that you see the Jedi in the movies through George Lucas's POV, like this. These are the good guys. They always do the right thing. They have no flaws, because that's how he writes his characters, because they're for kids. So it's good guy, bad guy, right? And that's all you need to know about any of them.
Fucking Darth Vader wears head to toe black armor.
Yeah, right.
Like George Lucas is not renowned for his subtlety.
Yeah, he's not a very subtle man. I appreciate that. So, and also I think by extension, you're seeing the films through the Jedi's POV. This, we do no wrong. Like, it's like the Acolyte is told through like the Sith's POV, where they're like, the Jedi are dicks, actually. Like, none of you know this, but the Jedi are dicks.
Well,
which is a sentiment I kind of agree with a little bit.
It was kind of Leslie Headland's whole goal, judging from some interviews about this show, because like she wanted to explore the side of the Force and the Jedi Sith conflict that we don't see.
Yeah, which
is part of why it was set at the time that it's set, because that's when the Sith are at their weakest.
I don't know if I agree with that, but I understand what you're saying. And also the only part of the Jedi Sith conflict that we've seen are just a few battles, like, you know, Dooku versus, there was someone on Facebook today that was like, well, Dooku wasn't actually a Sith. And it's like, bitch,
yes, he was.
He was Sidious's
Yes.
like legitimate apprentice. He was a card carrying Republican Sith. Like that's what he was. Yeah. And then he got his head chopped off.
The GOS, the good old Sith.
Yeah. Oh God. So like I enjoyed that whole POV thing. We already said stuff about the lightsaber stuff. There are so many open threads at the end of the show that are clearly meant to be explored in later episodes.
They are 1,000% doing another season.
Yeah. I think one of the weaknesses of this show, other than the episode lengths, are there might be too many threads. It seems like maybe they threw a lot of stuff at the wall and saw what kind of worked. Mm-hmm. I think they need to pare down and focus a little bit more on the second season. And it wouldn't surprise me if they do.
Okay.
I think there are a lot of things that are just hanging around and we're trying to figure them out. So anything else you want to say about it?
No, I think that's about it.
All right. Well, this episode just happened last night, and we're going to spoil it. So if you've not seen it, please.
We're not judging you. We don't know your life.
Yeah.
But you really want to go watch this.
Yeah. Look away and come back.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you may recall the previous episode ended with Osha putting on the Cortosis helmet and just sort of breathing.
Yep.
And this episode opens very similarly. There's the Lucasfilm logo and Osha is breathing and Kamir just kind of walks up and like laughs at like, shit, I didn't think you'd actually put that on.
You have no idea how fucking goofy you look in that thing.
Then Osha like twitches and does like horror movie contortions. And Kamir's like, oh shit.
Yeah, he's like, you're not hot anymore. No, I don't want that.
Let me get that off. Yeah. And then he does like, he falls to his knees and like his eyes do the black thing.
Yeah, let's break this down for a second. I'm pretty sure that she's instinctively possessing him. Yes. Right. Because at first it was not clear to me exactly what was happening here.
Well, he had mentioned before that like in it's sensory deprivation. It's just you and the Force and what you bring with you.
Right.
And that
it probably also amplifies your,
by virtue of the fact that you have nothing else to focus on.
Right. Yeah. I thought that was interesting. And props to Kamir, by the way, for being taken off guard, but still having the mental fortitude to push through it and take the helmet off.
Yes.
Because he was like, I don't like where this is going.
Yeah. Well, not only that, like he is explicitly having to fight against the witchy possession that we saw Torben couldn't work through. Yeah. Kelnaka couldn't work through it.
Kamir with black eyes, just as hot as Kamir without black eyes, I will say.
Oh, okay.
He looks, he's a tall drink of water throughout this entire episode.
Mm. So he like pulls the helmet off her and Osha like screams and Osha's like, okay, so that was fucked up. But I saw May like with her hand stretched out killing Sol without using a lightsaber. And Kamir's like, well, shit, she can actually do it. Cool. Osha's like, but the future's not fixed. As anyone who watched The Empire Strikes Back will know, always in motion the future is. So I'm going to go stop her.
Which is funny because I'm pretty sure that's like a more responsible approach to getting visions. Yeah. Where the Sith are generally like, this is happening. We must either stop it or make it happen, you know?
So Kamir's like, okay, but how the fuck are you going to get there? It's my ship.
Yeah. He's like, I haven't given anyone permission to ride on my ship yet.
Yeah. Osha's like, well, I know where we're going. And Kamir's like, well, shit, I guess we'll both go.
Foiled again.
Yeah.
Just like I'll get an Uber.
You may also remember, I guess this was 2 episodes ago, technically, that May was strapped to the bed in the ship and Sol was talking to her that whole flashback.
It was a little weird actually, because she was very vulnerable to him.
In his defense, she is a double murderer.
Oh yeah, like right. I'm not saying he was wrong. I'm just saying it felt a little weird. Yeah, and it's still so like the way the scene opens still feels a little weird. There's something about it where like the fact that she's tied up and he's
and like presumably he was talking at her for half hour to an hour going through the flashback.
Right. By the way, you think that she's like, oh my God, he just will not shut up.
Yeah.
In fact, she uses that. She's like, you know what?
This guy really likes the sound of his own voice.
Why don't you monologue a little bit more and I'll use, I guess, evil Pip?
Yeah.
Or just like...
Well, we'll get there because there's a little bit here.
Yeah, I don't want to go line for line through this.
Okay. So Soul is like, look, I'm going to call Vernestra and the Jedi. They're going to come out here. You know, I'm going to prove that there's virgins on this planet. And May is like, what are you going to prove? That you were justified in killing my mom all those years ago? Because that was kind of fucked up. So Soul is like, look, we were completely justified in what we were doing on the planet. I'm sorry your mom died. That was an accident. But like the Jedi can do no wrong.
This is kind of a thread that. So I've seen discourse about this, about Saul's character a little bit, because this is a thing that like comes up a couple more times, and like it does reek of arrogance, right? But he's not necessarily an arrogant man. You know what I mean?
I think it's a combination of the institutional arrogance of the Jedi.
I think he's indoctrinated,
and Soul, yeah. And Soul's own overwhelming compassion. Like that is the dominant character trait.
Yeah,
of his.
I agree, and I think that the Jedi are indoctrinated into thinking that it is their sole responsibility to make things right that aren't right, and that no one else can do that but them, because of the power that they're trusted with and everything. And I appreciate that Saul's character is complex enough where we fall in love with him mostly because of the acting. And I think that like he wants to do the right thing so badly, but his character is complex enough where he doesn't realize that what he wants isn't necessarily the right thing.
He's human enough that even like he has to believe that he's doing the right thing, to the point where he like goes back and justifies it even when the evidence is against him.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's true. I ended up appreciating his character all the way through the end of this episode, because it's like
very well written character.
Yeah, and I get that he so genuinely wants to do a good thing. I just think that all the Jedi are just
flawed.
And that's another point that came up on social media today. Like someone was bitching about their writing is like, and you're telling me that like the Jedi lied about the Sith, and it's like, yeah, that's what's in the like. First of all,
because the Jedi as an organization are made up of humans and other sentient beings, who are
imperfect
fallible
beings, and they're kind of rotten to their core, because not only are they imperfect, but they've enjoyed millennia of privilege, and so having the story told where it is makes it a little bit more believable that in just 100 years, all it took was just a little push.
Yep.
And it just took the whole fucking thing down. Yep. And it wasn't necessarily because Sidious was some mastermind genius, which he was.
He was. It was the Jedi's own hubris.
Yeah, he knew just the spot, just a little tap in that one spot, and all of it just came crashing down.
So Soul is like, look, I'm sorry I couldn't save the both of you. Like, you're not twins. You're not even sisters. And before he can finish this dramatic reveal, Osha has finished breaking out of her handcuff with Evil Pip.
And she's like, zap.
Yeah, she jams him in the chest with electric pry. He's like, oh, shit.
He's like, motherfucker.
So she breaks out and goes right into the escape pod, and Soul tries to chase after her. And we get a few shots of Basil lurking around in the background.
Whose fucking team is he on, by the way? A little bit later, we'll talk about something he does a little bit later. Oh, also, I will say my partner loves cutesy fucking things and shows, right? Like, we watched some of the gameplay from Star Wars Outlaws, and Kay Vess, the main character, has like a little
dog cat
thing and he's always the first person in the room is like, right?
Yeah.
We're watching this show last night. He's like, I fucking hate that thing. Like, Jesus, why?
So May gets in the escape pod, and Soul goes running up to the bridge to chase after her. May goes flying into these planetary ice rings, and Soul.
Oh, this sequence is so cool.
Good looking.
Yeah, and the reason I brought Basil up is because like there's a moment where it's like Saul has her in his targeting.
Yeah, like
thing.
He's powered up weapons. He looks like he's trying to psych himself off to shoot her,
or maybe like just like, like graze a wing or something.
And Basil just reaches into a console, pulls out some wires, and power fails to the engine.
And it's like, okay, first of all, he's a Jedi. Like, he probably has the skill. Like, he's probably not just going to blow out of the fucking sky.
What I think is happening is Basil was protecting Soul from himself.
I think he's making a lot of assumptions for a tiny little fucking gopher. Is all I'm saying.
Well, as you said,
they're supposed to be very intelligent.
Yeah. I think Basil, on some level, thinks that Soul will regret this if he does it.
This is what happens when you bring an alien like that just to be a tracker and nothing else. You're like, I just need you to sniff this. Like, I need you to sniff this this pair of panties, and then like go find this person.
And meanwhile, the tracker's like, I have 4 PhDs.
Yeah, I'm a physicist. Like, what the fuck?
So, like, his ship like careens to the side, like bumps hers, and she goes tumbling.
That ship fucking full on tips over.
Yeah.
And the whole sequence is really neat because there's like this space between two different ice rings that's big enough for her smaller ship to fly through, not really big enough for the like Saul's ship, but he's like we'll fit, we'll be fine.
We're gonna make this work.
It might be a little bumpy. Just hang the fuck on.
So speaking of bumpy, her ship goes fucking tumbling down and like crash lands on Brendok. So back on Coruscant, Vernestra Rowe goes to see Senator Ray in court. And this scene,
we got to talk about this.
I almost have to go line by line because there's a lot of consequential stuff they say.
Yeah. Let me just say, I find it weird that the guy that plays Ray in court is pretty fucking cool. Like, there's something he has an aura where I was like, you saved this motherfucker for the last episode. And when we get through everything, I've got like a list of questions about like where the fuck is this going. But let me just say that this guy's performance had me like the entire time through every scene he's in, like, who the fuck is this guy? Because I have a couple of ideas actually about him.
Okay, so Rancor is like, oh, Vernestra, I was very surprised to hear you went out to the Outer Rim. I thought your hyperspace sickness was real bad. And she's like, I'm fine now. What the fuck do you want? He's like, well,
do you think she gets really like?
I think she gets extremely sensitive.
Does everyone know about my hyperspace thing?
So Rancor is like, well, I've heard some disturbing rumors that you're investigating a murder and not informing the Senate about it. Vernestra's like, yeah, I can do that as long as there's no greater threat. And Rancor's like, okay, but what if there is a larger threat? And Vernestra's like, look, there is no larger threat. All the victims were Jedi.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Rancor's like, wait. There are multiple victims?
Yeah. She was like, oh, maybe I shared a little too much.
That.
Yeah.
Vanessa's like, I am very close to apprehending the suspect.
He's like, that's not better.
There's nothing to worry about. Rancor's like, is the suspect a Jedi? Vanessa's like, I am very close to apprehending the suspect.
The suspect may or may not be a Jedi.
Now fuck off.
There's a non-zero chance that the suspect isn't a Jedi.
Yeah. Rancor's like, okay, I will fuck off, but before I go, you don't like me very much, do you? And Vanessa's like, no, I do not like you at all. Rancor's like, okay, great. So as long as we're being completely honest, I think the Jedi are an unaccountable cult of unbelievable power, claiming that you have full control over your emotions, but we both know that's bullshit. Someday, maybe in, hypothetically speaking, 100 years or so, some guy, let's just call him like Skynekin Anna Walker, is going to snap. And then you're all going to be fucked. Right.
Yeah.
And the rest of us too.
Yeah. So the rest of us at home are crossing our arms saying, you know what? He's out of line. But he's right.
Vernestra is like, okay.
The second time this event has been foreshadowed on the show, by the way. I think someone else brought it up. I can't remember who. Maybe it's Kamir.
Maybe.
So someone mentioned something about the Jedi falling, like in the future or something.
So Vernestra's like, okay, well, that is an opinion, but not one that the Senate really shares. Rancor's like, yeah, well, the Senate are idiots. That they would rather look up to their heroes so that they don't have to look at the mortal, fallible beings in front of them.
Yeah.
Vanessa's like, okay, did you want anything else, or are you just going to leave through this door that I'm opening through the Force? Totally not as an intimidation tactic, but just because I'm extra. It was an intimidation.
She was really
tactic.
Like, oh, watch this. Can you do this?
Yeah. Rancor's like, I told the Chancellor about your lack of transparency. Don't be surprised if you get called out on the carpet. Hopefully you've caught your perpetrator by then. May the Force be with you. Now fuck off.
I like how his final argument was, I told on you, bye.
Yeah. So Kamir and Osha are swooping into land, and then there's this funny gag where, like, Kamir tries to talk to her and she just turns off his cockpit.
Oh, yeah.
She's like, I don't know.
Are there two cockpits on this ship?
I think so. I think like one's in front of the other. Because if you look at the ship, like they have 2 engine things and like cross braces.
Yeah. Also, we have to go back because
I'm sorry. I thought it was something else.
We have to go back before they leave.
Yes, I'm just about to get there. I leaped ahead in my notes. I'm sorry.
I was just thinking. I was like, wait a second. If they've left already.
So Kamira's like, you're seriously not going to tell us where we're going? And Osha's like, we're going together. That's only fair.
Yeah, this is back on Unknown Planet.
Yeah.
Still, yeah.
Kamira's like, do you really think I am interested in being fair? Osha's like, well,
me who killed all of your Jedi friends.
Kamira's like,
and one of them was your crush.
Kamira's like, look, you really should be trained in the Force. What do you say? And Osha's like, no. And Kamira like steps a little closer and kind of looks at her in the eyes and smolders a little. And he's like,
how about we kiss a little bit?
But seriously, how about it? Osha's like, I'm not May. Now
still,
fuck off.
Still no. Surprisingly, still no.
Kamira's like, I guess you aren't May, because she didn't even think twice before saying yes. So they get on the ship and fly away. And as they're flying away, we get a shot of the cave entrance where there's this creepy,
gross little hand
that creeps up to the
It's not a little hand, it's a big hand, actually.
And then from the shadows, we see like half of a face with a glowing red eye and
yellow eye.
Yellow eye and vaguely alien features.
Well, not vaguely alien. He's very clearly immune and is very clearly Darth Plagueis.
Yes.
And so this is one of the cameos I mentioned in the spoiler-free thing, where this was the one that I expected somewhere in the show, because I remember Leslie Headland saying that there were going to be 2 Sith characters by the end. So I was like, it's probably going to be Plagueis, I bet.
Either him or Tenebris, because that's how the timeline works out.
Plagueis, I think, is the one more people generally know about because he's the one that's mentioned in the film.
Yeah.
And if you've not...
Normies have no idea Tenebris even exists.
And you're right. If you've not read James Luceno's Darth Plagueis, like, you might not even know who Tenebris is. So I was like... So I figured that it's probably a better chance that that's who it would be. I didn't realize it was gonna happen at this point in the episode, and just like this out of nowhere. Yeah. Where I was just like, oh, okay, we're gonna go to a different planet. Oh, what the fuck is this? And John and I just like stopped and stared at each other, and we're like, well, I guess Plagueis is in the show.
Was he just there the whole time?
And I knew that they weren't gonna. What was he doing in there?
I don't think you want to know.
Do I want to know? I knew that them introducing Plagueis or Tanner, it didn't matter which one, was going to raise questions about the relationship between the Sith and Kamir. Because
Kamir clearly believes that he's a Sith.
Yeah.
Whether he actually is or not is...
I think this is on the list when we get to the end, because I have thoughts about this.
So on Brendok, Sol has landed much more gracefully than May, and he turns on a homing beacon so the Jedi can find him, and goes off the ship and uses the Force to like sense May and goes running off, and Basil watches him go. So on Coruscant, Vernestra is talking to someone on the phone, says, I need to talk to him. It's urgent.
Oh yeah. Jesus, there are so many things. I need to put that on my list. Yeah. I'd totally forgotten about that, because there are like 2 or 3 Vernestra reveals where you're like, what the fuck is happening?
Going on here?
Yeah.
So she hangs up the phone, and Moog steps in and says, hey, we found Sol. He's on Brendok. Vernestra's like, okay, get my ship, get all of the Jedi. We're going. Moog is like, why do we need all the Jedi? Is there going to be a fight? Vernestra says there is going to be a resolution.
Which was her way of saying,
I don't know what the fuck Sol is doing, what he thinks he's doing, but we are going to figure it out right now.
She's like, someone's going to die, probably.
So Kamir and Mace, or Osha, swoop down on Brendok, and Osha's like, when you land near the fortress, and son of a bitch, they're already there. So Sol like sees their ship come in and just sort of glares suspiciously at it, and he looks around and starts yelling for May, and he hears the flashbacks to the conflict there. Kamir and Osha approach the elevator that goes up, and Osha's like, okay, we need to either fix the elevator, or we need to go fucking climbing up the mountain like a bunch of crazies.
Let's just fix it.
And
because I don't know if I want to climb a mountain today.
And
Sol's like, I know how to climb the mountain.
And like in her head, she hears Kamir say, are you sure those are the only ways? And like she turns to look at him, and he's not there.
Yeah. He pulls a Batman.
Yeah. So Sol is walking through the ruins. He comes to the place with the catwalks where he tried to save them, and like he's visibly
has a little reflection about it. Yeah,
he's visibly shaken by this, and like goes back the other way. As he leaves, like May climbs up directly below where he was standing, and May is trying to find him, but winds up in her and Osha's old room. So Sol is still searching and shouting for May, and then Kamira suddenly appears behind him and is like, hey, thanks for leading me to her, and you know, we make a great team. So lightsabers come out and they fight, and it's a cool fight.
So I mean, Kamira always looks like a badass with a lightsaber anyway, but I enjoy the Sol fight in several different ways, but there's a shot of Sol backing up in a defensive stance to the hallway, and Kamira just walking toward him that took me to like Empire Strikes Back, like with Vader and Luke. Yeah. Despite the fact that the dynamic is switched, where like I don't think Kamira realizes how out of his depth he is with Sol, just because like up until a little bit later, like Sol has kind of had the training wheels on a little bit. Yeah. And I think at one point during the fight it was like, I'm taking those motherfuckers off, I think. Yeah.
So there's some so like they fight, they go across the catwalk where the witches were having the arrows pulled, and like they break that and go floating gracefully down to the courtyard.
There is some like serious crouching tiger, hidden dragon shit in this episode that I was really into.
So Sol's like, you know, I will destroy you if I must, and Kamira's like, not if she kills you first.
He's like, what do you mean by that?
Huh? So like he pulls out the second lightsaber and they start fighting, and like at one point Kamira throws both his lightsabers and Sol blocks them.
Oh, it's fucking, well, he doesn't, because he throws the lightsabers and they go behind him.
Yep. And he pulls them back with the Force.
Yeah. And then like
he goes to like jump punch, and Sol's just like, no, and like Force
puts his lightsaber away, puts it on his belt, and is like, watch this. And like everything, like it's a really cool visual detail that like there's a shockwave first, and then like Kamira is like propelled backwards, and like his fucking lightsabers go who the fuck knows where. And then like, because Sol is just a little extra sometimes, like lets everything happen, and he's like, oh, now I'll take my lightsaber out again.
All the Jedi are just a little bit extra.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you know that some of these moves they've like practiced in the mirror before. They're like, you know, it would look really fucking cool.
It's like fucking Yord like floofing out his cape so he doesn't sit on it. Yeah. So Osha finds May in their room, and May's like, oh, hey, you're here. Like, please listen to me. Osha's like, all this death is your fault. You couldn't just let me be a Jedi. May's like, Sol lied to you. Like, Osha says Sol never blamed you. He tried to teach me that someone I love could do all this, and I could never calm my negative emotions, and that's why I never became a Jedi. So I guess you won after all. How about that? May's like, Sol killed our mother. He's lied to you all this time. Like, how can he teach you to control your negative emotions when he's the reason you have them? Like, you didn't fail. He did. Osha, like, is on the verge of a nervous breakdown at this point.
Yeah, I don't think, like, Osha, ever since episode 5, Osha becomes more and more emotionally vulnerable. And she didn't start off in a particularly emotionally strong state to begin with, because she's arrested for a murder that she knows she didn't do, and is kind of at the mercy of the Jedi. But like, she has to watch Jecki get murdered. She watches Yord get murdered. She hangs out with a super hot Sith guy who she's like, I would fuck probably.
If you hadn't just killed my friends.
Yeah. And even so. And then like this episode with the helmet, and it just like, she just like, I feel like her emotional strength just gets rubbed more and more down. And by the time we get to where this is going, she just like, she just can't cope with it.
So like she screams and charges at May, and they have a fist fight. And like at one point she's like, hey, you have Pip, and oh god, he squirted oil in my eyes.
Which, by the way, was her move with Pip. Yeah. Against like the other guy in that one episode. I wonder if Pip will be a returning character in the second season.
I kind of hope so.
I hope he gets his memories back. Yeah.
At one point, they do an extended sequence of the same moves, like the same kicks, the same blocks.
Yeah.
It's cool. And when they pause, like they break away and like catch their breath, May is like visibly pretty composed, and OSHA is still losing her shit. And they fight.
Yeah, she's like developing like an eye twitch, and she's just like losing her shit.
And like, so Kamir and Sol are still fighting, and they notice the Jedi ship come in. And Sol's like, now you're going to pay for what you've done. Kamir's like, oh, they're not here for me.
Yeah. I like how he's like, oh, my friends are here now. You're going to get your ass whooped.
Kamir's like, are you sure about that? So OSHA and May also realize the Jedi are here. Like OSHA's looking up through a hole in the ceiling at the ship. When she looks down, May is gone.
May has pulled a Batman.
Yep. So Sol and Kamir are still fighting, and they like do a saber lock, and Sol tries to burn through Kamir's hilt, and they step back and like do the anime samurai dash through each other.
And they both stop. And everything.
They both stop.
Yeah.
And like,
I thought he killed Kamir. And I was like, damn. I mean,
for like half a second,
yeah.
It looks like he might have. And then like the top of Kamir's lightsaber breaks off.
And he's like, God damn it.
I worked so hard on this. Like, you see this cool red crystal? You have any idea how emo I had to be to make it do that?
Also, like it came apart.
Yeah, it was so, man. So Kamir tosses it away and like takes his helmet off and turns around and sees Sol like pointing his lightsaber at his throat. But before anyone can do anything, May comes out of nowhere and fucking attacks Sol and takes his lightsaber. Kamir's like, hey, great job, May. Now fucking kill this idiot and your journey will be complete.
Kill him now.
May's like, no, I don't think I will. And just throws away his lightsaber. The lightsaber sort of breaks on a rock, like not breaks, but like breaks
Clinks.
open a little bit.
Yeah. Or does it?
Yeah. It does.
I don't think it break. I don't think
like there is an opening and like you can see the crystal.
Well, I thought you could see the crystal through just the emitter.
I don't think so, because like part of the handle breaks is the thing.
Yeah, but it works later on.
Yeah,
like it activates later on.
It still works. Just
yeah.
Like
I just thought I just thought that like if you took a lightsaber and like looked in one end, you could like see the kyber crystal.
Don't do that.
Yeah, you probably should.
If you're ever in a situation where you're holding an actual lightsaber, do not look directly into the emitter. It's like, no, I want him to confess his crimes before the High Council, the Senate, and the Republic, and I want him to pay for it. Sol's like, I did the right thing. I was trying to protect you two.
Yeah, even still, like
he's still
like
fucking
sticking
believes.
to this. Like I am the one in this situation that was righteous.
Yeah. Sol's like, you are not twins. You are the same person. Like, I have no idea how the fuck your mother did it. Probably with some weird space lesbian magic. But using the virgins on this planet, like she created like one person split in two bodies. Like that is some seriously fucking
That's
insane
fucked up. That's crazy.
Yeah. So as he's talking, like OSHA approaches and picks up his lightsaber. And May is like, so you totally killed our mother, right? And so
he's like, she turned into a fucking smoke monster.
May's like, but you fucking killed him, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Again, smoke monster.
OSHA's like, seriously? Because that's kind of fucked up, dude.
So, if you were there, you probably would have swung a lightsaber at her too. It was it was real scary.
I did the right thing. I was protecting. OSHA's like, why didn't you tell the Jedi about that? And like, if you were so righteous and justified, why not just tell the Jedi? So I was like, look, without May,
they didn't ask.
Yeah. Without May, I couldn't prove how you were created. And I was like, well, why didn't you tell me any of this? And so I was like,
you didn't ask.
They wouldn't have let you train. Like, you were already too fucking old to train.
Yeah.
Like, they made a lot of exceptions.
And it was my gift to you to be a Jedi. And yeah.
And like, I was trying to protect you. I wanted to tell you so many times, but I couldn't. And OSHA approaches and like, she's tightly gripping his lightsaber. Like, you can almost see the
more and more unhinged. Just both eyes are twitching.
Yep. Yeah. She's like, just stop talking. And Sol continues to talk, and eventually he just starts choking. He's
about to tell her that he loves her.
Yeah.
He's like mid-sentence about to tell her that he loved her.
And like May and Kamir kind of like
platonically, I think probably.
Yes.
Yeah. Because that would be really
like
weird.
Either like as a father or as a much older brother.
Yeah, right.
So like May and Kamir are a little weirded out when they realize that OSHA is force choking him.
I think Sol is like, what the fuck is happening right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, I noticed that he didn't really fight.
No,
he didn't really fight it either.
At all.
Yeah, which is, it's probably another entirely different thing for him. It's interesting that like this really terrible event happened that he's a part of, and
that he was clearly ashamed of because like he didn't want to talk to anyone about it.
But his training is to turn that off and not deal with it, right? Because that's what the Jedi do. They turn their feelings off. They're supposed to turn their feelings off.
Yeah.
When, like, if he had told someone about what happened and let the emotions run their course and maybe gotten some fucking therapy about it, he might have walked away from that entirely fine.
Yeah.
But instead, he just buried it and smiled and was like, everything's fine. I'm going to go now be responsible for children.
So, like, as Osha is choking Soul, like, her hand is touching the crystal in the broken open lightsaber. And, like, there's some little sparks of it that start turning red, which is just a little bit worrying. So Soul is, like, gasping and says, Osha, it's okay. And Osha, like, kills him, chokes him to death, and then falls to her knees. And May is looking on like, yeah, you fucking killed that guy. And Kamir looks on with a very calculating look, I think.
There are a couple of moments in this scene where when they exposit information, like when Saul says, I don't know what it is about space lesbians, but you are both the same person in two different bodies. Kamir's like, oh,
yeah,
that is weird.
That leads to a revelation here because, like, if they're the same person, technically May completed Kamir's mission to kill a Jedi without a weapon.
Yeah. Because
Osha did it.
Also, what is their, like, joined name?
I don't know.
Moshe?
Maybe.
O'Shea?
I think I like Moshe more.
OJ. Yeah.
We'll work.
I wonder if they'll just, like, fade into the same person at some point, because we made a joke about that, by the way, in like the second episode, about how, like, because May just, like, wanted them to be together all the time.
They just do the Dragon Ball Z fusion dance.
Yeah, they just, like, become the same person. Yeah.
So, like, Kamir is looking at her, like, either with admiration or, like, calculating, and, like, he walks over and, like, offers her a hand up, and Osha swings the lightsaber at him, and, like, the blade extends and it's blue, except it's turning red and more red, and oh god, it's completely red.
Yeah. First live action kyber crystal bleeding, which is kind of neat. The closest we've come to this so far is in Jedi Survivor, where one of the characters bleeds his lightsaber right in front of Cal Kestis, and Cal Kestis is like, okay, though, that's probably not good.
Yeah.
Like, is that allowed?
Yeah. So Vernestra and the Jedi get off the ship, and as soon as her feet touch the ground, like, she senses something and reaches out in the Force, and Kamir immediately, like, snaps his head around, like, oh.
So I like how, okay, so Kamir's reaction.
He's like a dog, like, we hear something. Oh.
Yeah. I like how his reaction is, put the helmet on, run the fuck away. He's like, nope.
Because if he damn
near dropped that helmet trying to get it on fast enough.
Like, he was Vernestra's former student. He knows
obviously
what it means.
Yeah, they don't just come out and say it, but I'm pretty sure we're meant to assume it. Yeah.
Like, he knows what it means that Vernestra is all the way out here,
and she senses him too.
Yes.
Interesting line she has.
She's like, oh, you're still alive.
Yeah. Which you're like,
that's interesting.
Kamir's like surprised.
So she's like,
your arrogance blinds you.
So she tells Jedi, like, I know where they are. We're going to go this way. So they go marching through the woods, and Basil shows up, and Mock's like, oh, hey, you're alive. Great. Cool. So May approaches Osha, is like, we need to leave right the fuck now. I know a way. Let's go.
I know the way.
So they go running into the ruins, leaving Soul's body behind, and they...
We have to take a minute also to mourn Saul's death. Though I assumed he would die. I don't think that this death came as a huge surprise, but it was
a little surprising to me.
Oh,
maybe I just wasn't reading the room.
I assumed that every person that saw Kamir's face would end up dead, or otherwise
unable to identify him.
Right. Particularly the Jedi, because the Jedi are the ones. Like, for example, like, let's say that Osha sees Kamir's face and then tells someone, who's going to listen to them? Like, people will listen to Jedi, right? So I kind of assumed that the Jedi, whoever saw him, would end up dead. So I assumed that at some point Saul had to die as well. And it just, even still, a part of me was kind of hoping we'd see more of him in the second season. And,
a very selfish part of me that does not give a shit about Star Wars canon, wants him to come back as a Force ghost, even though
it's not allowed.
He can't.
Okay. That is not mistaking Ki-Adi-Mundi birthday. That is something that would be a crime against
that would
canon.
be breaking canon.
Yeah. That would be a big problem.
So they go running into the fortress and like climb down the pit where May fell, and then they go out this tunnel. And so the Jedi arrive.
Secret tunnel.
Yeah, the Jedi find Sol's body, and Vernestra like hears the past confrontations to the Force.
Yeah, she can do so. Is this a thing that all Jedi? Because Ahsoka does the psychometry thing too, and then
my understanding is it was originally something that like only a couple of Jedi had, or were especially good at. Like it was Quinlan Voss's thing,
right? Yeah, he was kind of the first one that could kind of do it, where it was like in a mainstream story, like on TV.
Maybe it's that like, and then every Jedi can do it, just at differing levels of ability.
Well, so Cal Kestis can do it, and what's her name? The Jedi that rescues him.
I don't remember her name. Seer.
There you go. Yeah, acts like it's a kind of a big deal, or like a rare thing.
Yeah.
But then like Ahsoka can do it, and then
maybe it was just rare by.
Yeah, I guess out of 10,000 Jedi, we know about the 5 of them that could do it or whatever.
Yeah.
I guess that kind of makes sense.
So Vanessa's like, okay, all you Jedi fucking get out there, make a perimeter, go searching, just get the fuck out of here.
I see. Okay, so I really thought. So Saul in episode 5 brings, I think including him, there are like 8 Jedi.
Something like that,
right?
Yeah.
Vernestra shows up with like 20.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm not fucking around.
I'm not taking any chances.
And I really thought maybe that this is going to end with Kamir killing all of them too. I was like, damn, like they love killing Jedi in this show.
So Vernestra's left alone with Sol's body, and she like kind of squats down next to it and looks it around and like brings her.
You see it from a far away, it's like it's a far away shot.
Then we get a shot, and it's Kamir kind of creeping down on her. And then Vernestra like gets up.
He's just watching her from around the corner, just like heavy breathing.
Yeah.
They're like,
then she looks in that direction, and he's gone.
Yep.
Has done the Batman again. So May and Osha go running through the woods. They eventually end up at the Bunta tree. And May's like,
to clear up any confusion here, I had to explain this to my partner. Bunta tree and the Bunta Eve Classic are 2 entirely different things.
Okay.
Spelled incorrectly. Okay. Or not incorrectly, but spelled differently. Yeah.
Okay. So May is like, yeah, I waited for you here. And Osha's like, I'm sorry. May's like, I'm sorry I started the fire. Like that was kind of fucked up. And Osha breaks down crying, and May Osha starts reciting their rhyme, you're with me, I'm with you, blah, blah, blah. And May's like, who the fuck?
Yeah, I like how they're like, okay. So now that we don't have time to talk about this, let's talk about who taught us this fucking rhyme again?
Osha's like, I thought you made it up.
Yeah.
So then Kamir like force grabs the lightsaber away from Osha's like, look, if I can fucking find you, so can the Jedi. Like we don't have time to be doing all
First
this.
lesson, we have to fucking leave.
Yeah. Like while all this is happening, there are scenes of like Basil leading the Jedi through the woods towards them. And Osha's like,
they're just using him like a tracker now again.
Yeah,
like
Osha's like, look, it's gonna be fine. I'll tell the Jedi what Sol did. Kamir's like, after all this shit, you still believe in the Jedi? Like, are you seriously that stupid? Like, once they figure out how strong they are, May's like, they're gonna fucking kill you, girl. Like, Osha turns to May and is like, okay, what do we do? May's like, well, what do you want? Like, what do you want out of life? Osha,
I could go for a Wendy's Frosty.
Yeah.
Let's go. Can we go to Wendy's? Kamir, can we go to Wendy's?
Would be a good choice.
It's your ship.
Instead, Osha walks up to Kamir and says, okay, look, you let May go and I will train under you. I will be your apprentice. May's like, are you sure about this? Like the Jedi will use me to find you. Kamir's like, well,
actually,
I have a solution for that.
Yeah.
I will just wipe her memory, remove all traces of both her and me.
Yeah.
And it'll work out great.
Which, by the way, I feel like this is one of those force powers that would require a vast talent to be able to do it. Like, I can't imagine they have a bunch of people running around that know how to do something like that.
Well, maybe it's not a power that you could learn from the Jedi.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So May's like, go ahead, do it. Osha's like,
from a Jedi.
Yeah. Osha's like, I don't want to lose you. And May's like, you're going to do what you're meant to do, and I'm not going to stop you this time.
Also, we're the same person, and I don't know how that really affects how we see things that are ours now.
Yeah, it's all kind of weird.
Or the concept of ours. I think it's just mine somehow between the two of us.
So OSHA like turns to Camille and holds out her hand, and Camille hands over the lightsaber. She hugs May, and then they cry, and OSHA's like, I'll find you. And they're reciting the rhyme, and while they're in the middle of this, like Camille reaches out and starts doing his memory erasing, and May can't finish the rhyme because she no longer remembers
she forgot it. Yeah, and she's like, "Who the fuck are you?"
Yeah. So Basil leads the Jedi.
And she's like, "I don't know. I'm no one. See you later." Yeah.
So Basil leads the Jedi to the tree, and they find May, and Mog's like, "You're under arrest." And May's like, "For what?
For why?"
So on Coruscant, like they lead May through the temple in cuffs.
Oh, okay. This is okay. So she goes to see Vernestra,
Yes.
right? And they walk her into the room, and she tells them to take the cuffs off, and then tells them to fuck off.
Yeah.
Did that not give you Palpatine Return of the Jedi vibes?
A little bit.
Where he just fucks off with the cuffs and tells the guards to leave them?
Not so much when I was watching it, but in retrospect, yeah.
I was like, damn.
Power move.
Yeah. It just kind of, I don't know if that was meant to, if we were meant to see that as a similar thing. Yeah. I don't know. After this episode, after this season, because I knew about Vernestra Rowe before the show, because I started reading the High Republic books. And especially after this episode, I am shocked at Vernestra's character development.
Yeah.
It just, I can't believe they're the same person.
I really feel like there's a lot of the middle of her life that we aren't seeing.
Yeah, she does.
That we haven't seen yet that might explain.
Yeah, she lives for quite, I mean, by the time we catch up with her in the Acolyte, she's like well over 100 years old. So, yeah. So
Vanessa's like, okay, clearly your memory's been fucked with. What do you remember? May is like, well, there was fire that destroyed my home and a man who killed my mother, and I ran away, and I needed to tell someone that I couldn't find.
I think there's a hot Filipino guy in there somewhere.
Vanessa's like, okay, so your last memory is from when you were 8 years old, and you're like 26 now. So that's kind of suboptimal. So the man who killed your mother was a Jedi, and he was a great guy, kind, brilliant, compassionate.
Except for the killing part.
Except for, the terrible things.
Except for he killed your mom part.
So Vernestra is addressing a room full of senators, and she's like, okay.
I like her fucking like drip. She's like kind of got like a dress thing going on, and she's got like the two rebellion firebirds.
Yeah, the Republic symbols. Yeah. So she's like, okay. So once upon a time on Brendok,
let me tell you the official Jedi story.
Let me tell you what actually happened. Yeah. There was a cult of witches, and
yes, they were all lesbians. No, it's not important to what I'm saying right now. Shut the fuck up.
Like there was some Jedi there investigating the planet, and they confronted the witches, and there were many casualties. Afterwards, the Jedi covered it up, but when the truth was about to come out, a rogue Jedi named Sol killed his accomplices to maintain his cover.
It was this moment where I was like, "What the fuck, dude? That is like
that's so fucked up.
That's insane."
And what makes this even worse? Like there are shots of like Vernestra on Brendok, like interacting with Sol's corpse, and one of them is
she apologizes. Yeah,
she says, "I'm sorry." Like even then, she knew that she was gonna have to cover this up.
Yeah, and I appreciate
she already had the story prepared then.
Yeah, it's which is gross, but and I do appreciate she gives him a proper Jedi burial, which is he sets the motherfucker on fire.
Yeah,
but I was really like, the Jedi have fallen so fucking far. And especially when you consider the last the post-credit scene that doesn't happen. This episode ends with a post-credit scene. I think that if it were a Marvel thing, it would be at like
an actual post-credits. Yeah,
where it was just like, how far does this go? Like, how high does this go?
Mm-hmm. Well, Rancourt says, okay, we need to fucking review the Jedi externally right the fuck now. Bring out the auditors. And Vernestra's like, look, it was the work of one man. There's nothing to see here. Just move along. Chancellor's like, okay, so where's Sol now? Vernestra's like, well, we found him dead on Brendok. It was probably a suicide. So she tells May that Sol made a mistake, and he justified that mistake over and over and over and over again, always excusing his actions with his love for your sister. And May's like, I have a sister?
Yeah.
Vernestra is Like,
Oh wait, oh shit.
okay,
That would be a weird thing to say to someone who just lost their memory.
Wait, what was her name? Osha. Does the name Osha mean anything? And May's like, Vanessa's like, okay, the Jedi have failed you, but we're gonna make this right. If you can help me find an old student of mine who turned to evil, which I think is confirmation that Camille was her student.
Is that what she says?
Yeah.
Well then, yeah, I guess that would be, yeah.
So back on the unknown world, Osha is like standing out, looking pensively at the sea, and like she's still holding the lightsaber in one of her hands. And Camille walks up next to her and kind of holds her hand, clasped around the lightsaber. So they look out at the sunset, and there's this intense music cue. It's really, really good, and fades to black. And then pre-credits. Vernestra walks into an open door, and the door closes, and she's like, I apologize for disturbing you, Master, but we need to talk.
Yeah, shit's going down.
And the camera pulls back and down a little bit, and we see a familiar pair of green pointy ears and a wisp of white hair.
Which I'm pretty sure this is a puppet Yoda. He looked like a puppet.
Yeah. It did not look CGI.
Yeah, so that's a cameo I didn't expect to see. And we barely see him. I mean, it's like 2 seconds.
Like it's unmistakably Yoda.
He doesn't say anything. You don't see him from the front or anything. But I was still surprised because the showrunners had talked about how they wanted to avoid stuff like that, like empty fan service kind of stuff. Which
then why'd they have the Plagueis cameo?
Yeah, well, no one's seen Plagueis before. I think that's kind of a
like nobody's seen him, but as soon as the episode premiered, everyone knew what he was.
I think what they meant was like we don't want people showing up because they know Yoda's going to be in it, right? Okay. And so
also this is maybe an answer to your question of how high it goes.
Yeah, that's the
because
thing.
Yoda is at least going to have some version of events relayed to him.
Yes. Okay. I have some questions.
Okay.
So first of all, like obviously, what is the deal with Plagueis? Because they're specifically what I'm curious about is what is the relationship between Plagueis and Camille, which is there is no relationship. Camille doesn't know he exists, and he's just creeping in a cave. Which a whole other set of questions. Yes. First of which is why would he do that? Plagueis is already the master, and they've futzed with his age a little bit, and he's pitting apprentices together or against each other to pick the stronger one, and figure that out. And this is like pre-Palpatine kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or the most likely, I think, is that Plagueis is the apprentice. And he's doing the same thing where he is exploring options for the person that will be best for him to kill his master with. And that way he has an apprentice waiting when he becomes the actual master.
So you're saying that Plagueis
Tenebris
is
being the master.
The apprentice, Tenebris is the master, and Camille is just like
his side piece.
Okay.
Yeah. And he it's kind of like Vader and Starkiller in Force Unleashed.
Yeah.
And I think maybe he's really interested in the mechanics of how Osha and May were made.
Yes.
And I think he's like, oh, wait, this might be the key to life everlasting. So maybe I should like try to figure this shit out.
There is a book in the old expanded universe. It was like published right before the Disney acquisition, I think, called The Book of Sith. And part of it, like it's written from various
first person,
various perspectives.
There's like in the margin, like Palpatine's like, Yoda is such a dick.
Yeah. Like there is a section that's like Darth Plagueis' journal as he's going through all his science experiments. And he talks a lot about like using midi-chlorians to create life, which he would be very interested in. Like assuming that part of his character is still consistent, he would be extremely interested in how May and Osha came to be.
I think Raincourt is way more significant than we think he is. And it wouldn't surprise me for them to change Tenebris's species, and this is just Tenebris. And where like somewhere along the way, the Sith are like, guys, we need a game plan. Our best shot at galactic dominance is taking it from inside. So this is what we need to do. We always need to be trying to infiltrate the government so that eventually one of us gets to the top.
Maybe.
There's something about him. He there's something silently sinister about him that is either not on purpose and it's just his face, or it's some really brilliant like character acting where every scene with him I was just like, oh god, like what is this guy's deal?
I don't know that I buy him necessarily as a Sith, but I do think he's going to end up being very consequential to the story.
Yeah. So we know that Camille and Venestra have a like a former relationship.
They have history.
Yeah. I'm interested to know what the deal with that is and what led to their falling out. It makes more sense now that they probably had a battle.
That would explain the
scar and everything.
Kirby scar.
Yeah. The thing is that he mentions in an earlier episode about that being a lesson that was taught to him. And I can't imagine Vernestra would teach like that. But then again, I wouldn't imagine before this episode that Vernestra would lie like she did.
I wouldn't imagine that Camille would immediately turn tail and run.
Yeah. Oh, he was freaked the fuck out.
He was out of it.
Yeah. He's like, oh God, mom's here. And he like puts the helmet on. And then that scene, I had forgotten until you mentioned it.
Where she rewrites history?
No, no, where she says, I needed to talk to him.
Mm-hmm. Who is that?
So first of all, stop playing the pronoun game. Every fucking story leans on this playing the pronoun game to hide the identity of something.
Yeah.
And I generally always hate it because it's a little cheap. But it's not like you can do the Kill Bill thing where like right before you say the name, it just beeps out.
Yeah.
Like, because that's just, but
it's possible she needed to talk to Yoda, but I can't imagine why they would obfuscate that.
It could have just been to make the last scene more impactful.
Maybe.
Which now that I think of, that very well just could have been it. So some unanswered questions. Mother Coral / smoke monster thing. What the fuck and where the fuck? Pretty much. Like, where did she go? Because they didn't kill her. I think she just turned into Smokey and ran. So I imagine Coral will end up being a part of this somewhere. I'm interested to know what happened to May and Osha is even possible and like the mechanics of it.
I think those might be like, they're almost certainly doing season 2. I think I could see a plot line where Plagueis either goes himself or sends other people to find Coral and bring her back and like ask her what she knows about it. Because or
get it out of her by whatever means. Yeah.
Because she carried May and Osha, so she
if he's wanting to know about it, she would be the place to start.
She presumably knows something about what happened.
Yes.
And number 2, she's just the only adult survivor of that witch cult that we know of.
Yeah.
So
I want to know what the Vergence on Brendock is, because that is not something they explain. We know it's not May and Osha.
There is in the flashback episodes like that big hole that the witches
are like praying at. Yeah.
I wonder if that could be it. It could be the Bunta tree, maybe.
Sure. Actually, yeah. I think the hole is probably more likely.
Or it could be something that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah. I think that like now we can kind of expect certain locations in the Star Wars universe, like the cave on Dagobah or the vagina hole on Octo in The Last Jedi are Vergences. And it's a thing that naturally occurs throughout the universe that the Jedi were trying to, when they cropped up, study and figure out where they were and document it and everything.
Yeah.
So we talked about like this conspiracy and like how high does it go? And it would be interesting to me on several levels if Yoda knew enough about all of this to be implicated in the end.
I think by the end of this, Yoda will not know that the Sith were involved because episode 1 still has to make sense, right?
It could make sense with him knowing.
If he's just covering it up?
Well, I mean, like Ki-Adi-Mundi is like, the Sith have been extinct for a millennia, and Yoda's like, dumbass.
Okay.
He doesn't know, but I know.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of the things that I liked about. So first of all, let me just preface this by saying J.K. Rowling is a piece of shit, and I wish that she didn't own Harry Potter. That being said, I was a huge Harry Potter fan when the books were coming out, and one of the things I really liked about the last book is how there is a side of Dumbledore that is very unsavory. I mean, he was a neo-Nazi pretty much in his youth.
Pretty much, yeah.
And he did grow, like he changed a lot.
He got better.
Yes. But that is still there. Mm-hmm. And it can't, like it ends up haunting his legacy. And I would be interested in seeing something like that haunting Yoda's legacy, where he knew about this stuff that was going on. Mm-hmm. He wasn't the perfect all-wise God that everyone assumes Yoda is, that he's a flawed being, and he made a decision that would end up haunting his legacy. I think that would be a really neat way to develop his character.